Now, after this after this kind of witty remark or witty retorting from the vagrant, Jagan tossed. You know what is tossing, right? Just kind of throwing, right? Just in a way that you toss the. I mean, like in cricket, you toss the coin, right? So in the same way, he just tossed a 5 paisa coin at him, at the vagrant, as he remembered an ancient injunction. While he just give this 5 paisa to the beggar, to the vagrant, he remembered the ancient injunction, an old saying, injunction. Right? If you don't know injunction, underline it. The meaning injunction means a formal command or admonition. Now, admonitions you don't understand, right? Now this is the thing. It's like we'll say like a very famous old saying or famous old kind of a command, right? Uh, old saying, injunction said that perform thy charity without question. Like if you are giving to someone, don't ask questions, just give, right? You know this, even we have this thing, right, in our cultures, right? හිඟන්නෙකුට දෙයක් දෙනවා නම් දානයක් දෙනවා නම් මොන හරි දෙනවා නම් ප්‍රශ්න කරන්නේ නැහැ මිනිහෙක් තමන්ගෙන් ඉල්ලන්නේ නැති හින්දානේ, right? ඒකට තව දේවල් කියන්න ඕනේ නැහැනේ. එක්ක දෙනවා නැත්තම් නිකන් ඉන්නවා. එහෙම දෙනවා නම් ඒ ගැන ප්‍රශ්න කරන්න එපා. Charity means that you're giving freely, right? So perform that. If you're giving, performing the charity, performing your good self, the good deeds, right? Without questioning, without just asking unnecessary questions, right? So that's the idea. In appreciation of the beggar said, like he is receiving now like 5 paisa coin, right? And appreciation as a way of thanking, as a way of like expressing his gratitude, he says, Master does not tell me much about America nowadays. Why? I like now he asked, the beggar asked out of context question again, right? He asked from Jagan, like, Master does not tell me about America nowadays. Now, all this time he had this talking disease, right? Like for everyone, he talk about America. Even for this guy, this exact vagrant, he taught about the Grand Canyon. Can you remember, right? Beggar did know about Grand Canyon, and he knew after Jagan explaining that it is in America, right? It's a kind of interesting place. Now he asks, you are not talking about America. Why? And Jagan replies, right? Because I have told you all you should know, right? I have told you, you don't need to know anything else about America, right? I have told you whatever you want to know. That's it, right? You don't ask questions now, right? That's the underlying message. But if I had a nanny, right? But then I can not you right? It had right? That's the tone here in this, right? It's not said, but that's the idea, right? What's the little master doing? Asked the beggar. What's the little master doing? Punchi matte මොකද කරන්නේ? Right? Just like what's in other words, what's Mali doing now, right? Jagan replies, well, he'll be starting a factory soon, replied Jagan without conviction. I'm like, yeah, he's going to start a factory now in Malgudi very soon, right? Without conviction means without any reassurance, without even knowing without even knowing what he's saying for sure, right? Just without conviction, without any idea, right? Without any assurance, he just said these two beggar, because beggar asked a question, he wanted to reply, right? That's it. Beggar is asking now, right? Beggar is kind of interviewing the donor here, right? Now the beggar is asking another question. What will he make? What is going to make in this factory, right? Jagan replies now, some machinery, Jagan said, not wishing to elaborate and wishing the beggar would leave him alone. Now, Jagan simply says, Jagan cut off big sentences and just some machinery. He's going to make some machines here, right? Jagan said, not wishing to elaborate means not wishing to explain these things, not wishing to demonstrate these things, wishing to go into detail and explain what he's going to make, what this item, story writing machine, those things he didn't want to speak to the beggar. Elaborate and wishing the beggar would leave him alone, and he felt inside like why the heck why the heck doesn't this beggar leave him alone, right? Asking these nonsensical questions, right? He didn't want to answer, right? He hated to answer anything about Mali. We know that from the previous instances, right? Fortunately, he slipped off to pester some other person coming in the opposite direction, and Jagan quickened his pace. And now, Beggar is asking all these questions. Now, who's been pestered here? Who's been kind of harassed here? Jagan is the one who's harassed, right? Like he gave the coin, and the bigger surefire way fired so many questions to him, and Jacob felt very uncomfortable. And luckily, at this moment, right, fortunately, he slipped off to pester some other person. There was another person coming on the biggest way, right? When a new person comes, right, he wants some other money from that person. So his attention goes there, right? So fortunately, when Jagan felt like the biggest attention is going somewhere else, right, he felt like, oh, thank you, thank God, right? He will be pestering, he will be troubling that guy, and immediately Jagan went out of that context, went out of that from that place where the vagrant is, right? And quickened his pace means he just hurried his steps. Passing truth printing, now he passed the truth printing press. He spied, he looked, he just kind of looked, right? Nataraj alone at his desk, and on the impulse stopped to ask. Nataraj is alone in the truth printing press, and he wanted to stop. Uh, and impulse means a kind of a want, a kind of a desire, kind of a temptation inside him just to stop and talk to Nataraj, to ask why he wanted to ask Nataraj, right? I hope you have not forgotten my work. Are you doing my work? Are you just, finalizing the publication of my work? He wanted to ask this from Nataraj. Uh, I like, yes. And sorry, yeah, and on an impulse he stopped to ask. He has asked this, it's right, like Nataraj did again. I hope you have not finished my work. Have you done my work? Jagan asked from Nataraj, right? How could I? How can I do your work? Said Nataraj. As soon as the pressure of the seasonal printing lessons, yours will be the first. In other words, like, how can I forget? Right? Don't worry, in other words, I said Nataraj. As soon as the pressure of seasonal printing lessons, the seasonal printing things, the orders are diminished, or once it's decreased, right? Yours will be the first. I'll immediately start on your book. I am your family printer, you know. I'm your guy, right? I'm your family printer. So what are the seasonal printing? At the end of a season, right? Pressers have new businesses. Pressers have to get new kind of businesses. For example, like I'll give some example in our case, in our context, right? If you are doing a press on at the end of the season, you may need to print out new diaries, right? At the end, or maybe you have to print out new calendars, or maybe you have to, if it's a kind of Vesak season or a kind of festive season, then you have to print out those cards and postcards and things like that. If you are running a business, right, you have to do these things, right? Those are the seasonal demands, right? Certain seasons have certain requirements. So even a press gets this kind of pressure, right? A lot of work, just queuing up. So he has to do those work, right? Those are the immediate income. So that's what Nataraj says. Once I finish these things, once this demand is over, once the rush is over, I'll immediately attend to your work. Don't worry. And I am your family printer. Family printer is a person that certain offers, or dispense certain services for a particular person. For example, you have family doctors, right? What is the difference between a family doctor and a general doctor? In a hospital, you don't have a family doctor. Hospital, you have a common doctor. He attends to everything. For example, like we'll say you have a family doctor. Like when you got a flu, you run to the family doctor. When you got a headache, you go to the family doctor sometimes. When you got some other ailment or other kind of a sickness, you go to this particular one doctor. That's the family doctor. Like the doctor is that dedicated. So in that way, in that similar kind of equivalent way, in that semblance, right? Nataraj says, and Nataraj introduced himself as a family printer to Jagan. They are close, in others, right? I'm your family printer, Your son has given me an urgent work which he wants in 3 days now. Again, right? See, Your son Mali has given me some work, right? His son given me an urgent work, kind of immediate work to be done, urgent work, which he wants in 3 days. He only gave me 3 days just to complete this task. The prospectus of his new enterprise. Now, this book or this thing that Mali has assigned Nataraj is called the prospectus for his new enterprise, for his new business. Now, what is a prospectus? If you don't know prospectus is a book again. It's a book that announces all the things that an enterprise or a business is going to do. For example, like in a foreign universities, right? I'll give you another example out from here in this book. For example, every university, every acclaimed university issues a prospectus every year for the public, for the students. I'm liking that, for example, like if you take a university like Southampton, right? They yearly gives a prospectus. In that prospectus, you have, right, these are the courses they are going to do, right? These are the courses like sociologies, then you have these humanities, then you have mathematics, applied sciences. These are the degrees we are going to do. In other words, it's like, okay, now when it comes to vehicle building, I mean, like we'll say like a heavy vehicle company that builds like backhoes or just tractors. They give a prospectus. In that prospectus you have like, these are the work, these are the products we have, right, for the new year, these new models will be introducing this. So it's like a kind of advertising tool itself, right? That's the thing we call a prospectus. Prospectus is simply a book that contains all the product of a company, right? So in this case, right, Mali has gone to the extent, right, to print a prospectus, the products that his company is going to have, and he has given the task to Nataraj. So Nataraj has to do this in 3 days, right? Now, all important information comes to Jagan from outsiders, right? What's even his son planning under his own roof is still always a mystery. Ah, cried Jagan. Ah, right. The scheme seemed to dog his steps. The scheme, this plan, the plan of this factory, right? The plan of this story writing machine factory, dog his steps. We'll underline, right? It's a kind of a idiom, right? Dog his steps means, the idiom means here, if you are dogging one's steps, right? If you are dogging somebody's steps, the idea is like to follow someone closely. To follow someone closely, right? And that's the idea of this idiom, right? So, cried Jagan, the scheme seemed to dog his steps. I mean, like the scheme of making the story writing machine seems to follow him wherever he goes, right? I mean, like the vagrant is asking, can you remember now? The Nataraj is saying something else about a prospectus, about an enterprise, right? Wherever he goes, right? He's coming with other people relating to this scheme, this plan, right? Your name is in it, said Nataraj, right? Jagan, your name is also in the prospectus. Isn't that a surprise, right? Exclaimed Jagan. That's the idea, right? Jagan exclaimed and said in a surprise to it. Nataraj pushed up his roll top and produced a proof sheet, and Jagan saw his name in print as one of the principal promoters of Mali Enterprise. Nataraj pushed up his roll top. I mean, like this desk, right? In a desk, you have sometimes, in shops, you have these roll tops, right? When you are entering the shop, some retail shops has this, right? You can this is a kind of a roll top, right? You can කඩ සමහර කඩවලට ගියාම දැකලා ඇති සීලර කඩවල තියෙනවා නිකන් ලෑල්ලක් වගේ එකක්, right? එතන ඉඳන් තමයි ඕඩර් කරන්න ඕන. ඒ වුණාට මුදලාලට එළියට එන්න ඕන නම් ඒ ලෑල්ල උස්සලා මෙහෙම එහා පැත්තට තියලා, just like he can come out when he goes inside, he can just cover it up. Those are kind of roll tops. That's maybe the idea here, right? We can't tell for sure, right? Anyway, Nataraj pushed his roll top, produced a proof sheet. Proof sheet is something he has printed and waiting to be the corrections done, right? You can't go to a printing press and immediately print. They will not do like that, right? What they do is they do a rough printing and hand it over to you. Then you have to do the proofreading. I mean, like these are the mistakes. You have to point to the printer. You have to point to the man who's printing. Then he will do again the rectifications. He amend those mistakes, and then only final. After few times of proofreading, only the final product will come out, right? So now, so such a way, and then Nataraj is giving the proof sheet, and Jagan saw his name. This proof sheet, Jagan, so his name is there. How is it introduced? As the principal promoters. Principal means most important, most like strong. I mean, like the highest contributors, kind of principal promoters of Mali Enterprise. The others in the list were Grace and a few of Mali's scooter riding friends. Names are in the prospectus, right? And Nataraj studies his face and said, and Nataraj looked to Jagan's face and said, why aren't you pleased? Why aren't you happy, right? Your name is here in the prospectus and you are the chief kind of a promoter in this Mali's new factory. Why aren't you happy? Why don't you look cheerful, right? Asked Nataraj from Jagan. Jagan replied in a hollow tone. Hollow is a kind of an empty, kind of a shallow, kind of a not a strong tone, right? Jagan replied in a hollow tone. Yes, no doubt. Yeah, I'm happy, right? Why shouldn't I not be happy? Right? In the hollow tone itself says the idea is quite the opposite, right? Seems to be an interesting new kind of enterprise, says Nataraj, right? Yeah, seems, looks like this is a interesting, like a fascinating kind of a novel happening, kind of a new business. This business sounds like, right? Yes, no doubt. Yeah. Sure. It's an interesting business. Says Jagan, right? As a reply. He hurriedly left for his shop. I mean, like he exited Nataraj, this printing, and hurriedly left means he quickened his step to the shop. As the cook stood before him taking instructions for the day, as usual, the cook was taking instructions what and what else not to prepare today, what is the menu today, right? Before him taking instructions for the day, he might begin to speak of the story writing machine, but luckily this man's universe of kitchen smoke and frying oil had not lost its insularity yet. I mean, like when Sivaraman came to Jagan, the head cook came to Jagan and was talking about like what to prepare today, discussing the stuff to make. Jagan was wondering while will Sivaraman will also ask about Mali's story writing machine from him. Even his workers will ask these kind of questions from him. So Jagan don't like that, right? But luckily, God help, right? Luckily, this man's universe, this cook's universe, the cook's entire world of kitchen smoke and frying oil. I mean, like he's living in the kitchen. He doesn't have outside knowledge, right? Some people are so into their job they don't almost know what is happening outside that world. So in this case, like Sivaram, this cook is like such a person. He don't know what is happening outside. He's always inside the kitchen, right? In the morning he comes, he stays in the kitchen till the night, right? It closes and he goes home, eats, sleeps, and wake up, come to the shop. He doesn't have that kind of a ways or means of knowing what's happening outside. So lucky, thank God, right? And frying had lost its insularity yet. So insularity is a kind of isolation or detached kind of a detachment, right? A state of being isolated. It's called insularity, right? So good, this guy doesn't know much and doesn't ask kind of these questions from me, thinks Jagan. Occupying his throne, and he's sitting on that special chair in his shop with the scent of incense and frying, as usual, right? He's lighting incense sticks, and this incense and the ghee smell, the frying of ghee smell mingles together. And Jagan recovered a little bit of his senses of security. And when he smells this, the smell of ghee and the smell of incense, it gives a good feeling of Jagan. It gives a feeling that he's home. It gives a sense to Jagan that he's comfortable. This is the environment he's good at, right? So a sense of security means he feel okay. In home, he doesn't feel that security. In the road, he doesn't feel his security. In problems, they are, I mean, like in home, ගෙදර ප්‍රශ්න පාරටාම ප්‍රාර ප්‍රශ්න කඩේට ඇවිල්ලා වාඩි වුණාම මේ සුවඳත් එක්ක තමයි මිනිහට එන්නේ පොඩි කික් එකක් එනවා නිකන් he's like he's comfortable, right? That's the idea, right? He opened the drawer and let his eyes rest on the copy of Bhagavad Gita for a while. He opened the drawer, took the Bhagavad Gita, his sacred text, opened a page at random. I mean, like he opened a page at random. Random is some kind of irregular way. I mean, like he doesn't read page by page. Sometimes he just turns page from somewhere, right? Randomly, without any previous plan. Randomly, and try to get absorbed in his eternal message, but part of his mind was deeply injured by the sight of his own name in print on the prospectus. I mean, like now he's opening the Bhagavad Gita randomly page just to read it and just feel good about him, right? But even Bhagavad Gita has such important things in as messages in its lines. Jagan is disturbed, right? He can't focus. He can't concentrate on these things because why? Deeply injured. His mind is deeply injured. His mind is hurt now. He's hurt. Why is he hurt? Right? He's hurt by the sight, by seeing. When Nataraj showed him the prospectus, he saw his name is in the prospectus. And that damaged him, that kind of injured him, that kind of hurt him, right? And why does he feel hurt to see his own name in this prospectus? Why do you think? Jagan is hurt about it. How could Mali perpetrate such a deed? Perpetrate means, if you don't know, underline it. Perpetrate is like perform an act usually with a negative connotation. I mean, like perpetrators are kind of wrongdoing. That's the idea here, kind of wrongdoing. So how did Mali do me wrong? How did Mali do me wrong? Publishing my name in his bloody enterprise's bloody prospectus without even telling me, without even informing me, and just in advance. How can he do something like that? How does he know that I'm going to support? How he took me for granted as a support? Those are the questions that hurt him, right, as a father. There you go. Mali perpetrate. How did Mali do it wrong, right? Such a deed like this, without asking my permission, without telling me, without informing me, just mentioning my name in his prospectus, take so much for granted. I mean, like, see him. He's taking so much for granted. I mean, like, he's not even questioned. He doesn't have the politeness just to ask me. He has put my name. He has used my name. He's consumed my name. I'm like, took something for granted. What does it mean? Like, you also take things for granted, right? Your parents provide. Your parents provide you costumes. Your parents provide you food. Your parents provide you shoes. Your parents provide you security. Your parents provide you transport, right? So you take it for granted. යාලා අමල තාත්තල්නේ. යාලා අපිට දෙන්න ඕන. අපි හැදුවා නම් අපිට දෙන්න ඕනේ නේ. මම කැමැත්තෙන් ආවේ නැහැ නේ. යාළුවනේ මාව හැදුවේ. මාව හැදුවා නම් මට ඒව දෙන්න ඕනේ. I think ඒක අහන්න දෙයක් නැහැ. You are taking things for granted, right? That's the idea. They don't have to give it to you, right, in the first place. They do it because they care for you. And you have to be humble as a student, as a child. You have to feel gratitude for what your parents do, right? Don't take for granted. Don't think they have to do it. They don't have to do it, right? They do it because they love you, right? So that's the idea of taken for granted, right? So don't take things for granted, right? Don't think that always everyone has to provide you. It's your duty as well, right? Just to convince your parent, yeah, it's always worthy that giving me these things because I'm going to perform. I'm going to just make you happy. Now in this case, like Mali acts like, right, his father has to provide him always. His father has to give him things. Right? You got the idea, right? Now, yes, that's why hurt it, Jagan was a little bit hurt here, right? Jagan felt a little bit damaged, right? Broken a little bit inside. Uh, had complete, yes, granted, but the poor boy probably had complete confidence in his father's support, and there was nothing heinous in that. I mean, like, heinous means what? Extremely evil, extremely ugly, extremely bad is called. It's another word for nefarious. I mean, like heinous, called heinous crimes, very horrible stuff, right? So, okay. Now the idea is the boy thought, but the poor boy means like poor Mali probably had so much confidence, so much, I mean, like trust, faith, loyalty, I mean, like confidence in father's support. Now he can't do his plan without father's support. He's so dependent on father's support, right? Jagan's support. And there was nothing heinous in that and nothing bad in that, right? I mean, like Jagan also feel like, yeah, so what, nothing wrong in my boy, just, is little dependent on me. He's depending on me. It was natural. I mean, like it's okay for him as a father, right? Just to tackle this. Still, he should at least have had the courtesy to mention it to him. At least Mali had, if Mali did mention, right, Papa or Father, I'm just putting your name in the prospectus. At least if he had informed him that earlier, Jagan would be okay with it, right? Like it will not hurt, it will not surprise because he came to knew this from Nataraj, a total stranger. But Mali and Jagan live under the same roof. Why can't he tell those things? Why can't Mali tell these things to father who's living under the same roof? If Mali is the one who's asking these things, right, these helps from father, why can't he tell that he's going to print the name? Because there's a problem here. When you print the name in a prospectus, the whole Malgudi is going to see this, right? Whole anyone who sees this, right? So it's like going public, right? That's a big thing, right? Going public means announcing publicly, right? So there's this thing here, right? You have to think about. Still, he could at least have had the courtesy to mention it to him. Neither Grace nor Mali. At least Grace, if Mali couldn't, neither, no, none of them. No Grace, no I mean, like the daughter-in-law, neither the son. Anyone informed him. But perhaps they had only been hanging about his puja room to inform him of that rather than to ask for capital. And he blamed himself for not giving them a chance. And now suddenly it occurred to Jagan, suddenly it dawned, or suddenly the idea came to Jagan, right? Aha, maybe Mali came to my puja room that day just to speak these things, right? Just to tell that he's going to include the name in the prospectus. But I was the one who's not listening, right? What he did, can you remember? He closed his eyes and chanted that incantations loudly, right? And away just cut off them. So Jagan think maybe that's the moment they came to speak about these things. But anyway, I acted irrationally that time. So maybe that's my fault again, right? Because I didn't let them speak about it. So you see this, right? Sometimes he's get angry in one part of his brain, and the other part of his brain, balance that feeling and kind of a equivalent, a kind of a balance here in his thoughts, right? One thought speaks against it, the other thoughts balance it, kind of give a completely different idea, and he kind of self uh, evaluates the situation, right? So it's nice. This is how psychology works actually inside any person, right? We have this devil that says bad things, then on the other side we have the God that says good things, right? It's always this, tension between the devil and God. And as a matter of fact, a great uh, um, writer as Franz Kafka, I can remember one of his infamous saying, is there's always a fight between the devil and God inside man. Inside man hates the devil is pulling this way, the God is pulling that way. There's a constant fight between the devil and God, but you have to always back up the God. I mean, like you have to always stand for the God, right? Doesn't matter the devil is pulling you, but always stand with the God. Like do the good things, right? So, right, it's out of the context still, but still in something impressive. We'll come back to the text again, right? Whoever was the American associate, uh, he had done his coaching perfectly, and Nataraj proved extraordinarily prompt. And now, after some time, Jagan thinks, right? Who is this American associate? Who are these Mali's American friends, American collaborators? He had done his coaching perfectly. Whoever these American guys, they have coached Mali perfectly. I mean, like they have taught Mali. I mean, like educated Mali very in a nice, I mean, in a very perfect way, right? And Nataraj proved extraordinarily prompt. I mean, Nataraj proved very fast. This guy didn't for ages and ages and ages didn't print my book. Now see, he has printed Mali's book. He's prompt. He's fast. The city was soon flooded with prospectus of Mali's company. The Malgudi city soon flooded means everyone, mostly every important person got a copy of this prospectus, this book, right, of Mali's company. Is the company made still? No. Before even the company is done, is finalized, anything, a book that advertises the company products is on the circulation, right? Isn't that an ironic thing as well, right? Now, normally, once you start a business, only you are just announcing things, right? Your products, right? Imagine you're going to make a toffee company, right? Or like you're going to make toffees. Before even you start your company, will you just print a book and waste money on a book, right? Prospectus of the toffees that you're going to make in advance, right? Some may be like serious business people may support this idea. Yeah, that's like I mean, like making the market in advance, right? Approaching the market in advance before giving the product. So you kind of create a demand, and when the supply comes in, people are aware of it, right? That's another way of approaching it. Those are kind of advanced theories, but those kind of theories are not familiar at this context. We are talking about post-colonial India context, right? So it's kind of rather odd here, right? We'll keep that aside. So the city was soon flooded with the prospectus of Mali's company. The first one came by post to Jagan himself at the shop. And even Jagan is at the shop, right? Sweetmeat shop. The postman brings the prospectus to Jagan. It came in the post. That's the irony. That's a big irony here, right? That's very indirect and humorous and sarcastic. Right? Mali and Jagan share the same roof. And why did Mali send that book in mail to Jagan's shop? Right? Screen එකෙන් එහා පැත්තට පැනලා, right? Screen එකෙන් curtain එකෙන් එහා පැත්තට පැනලා තාත්තට දෙන්න තිබ්බ පොත තැපෑලෙන් තාත්තගේ සාප්පුවට තැපෑලෙන් එවනවා කියන එකම, I mean, like a kind of a preposterous, I mean, kind of I mean, like sarcastic, right? Event, right? I mean, like, look at this thing, go think these things, right? Himself at the shop. I went into the cultural shortcomings of the country. Now, in this prospectus, in this book, a certain passage talks about the cultural shortcomings, cultural inadequacies, cultural deficiencies, cultural I mean, like shortcomings means how Indian culture is not that good, how certain places where Indian culture fails, right? Shortcomings, I mean, like mistakes of the country, and the need for it to take place in the community of nations. I mean, like how we should improve those mistakes, right? How can we overcome? How can we win those shortcomings, right? And and the need for it to take its place in the community nations, and how this machine was going to cut time and distance and lift the country out of its rut, and then followed many facts and figures. Now this prospectus is elaborately explaining like how to overcome these cultural shortcomings, right? And how this machine can help improve the culture, how this machine can improve the products of writing in his country. I very explain in detail in this prospectus, right? And so many other things like lift the country out of his rut. What is a rut? Rut is a groove. ඒ කියන්නේ දැන් අපි කිව්වොත් just to give an idea, rut is like, imagine like a මඩවලක්. මේ රට මඩවලක්. මේ වඩ වලින් මේ නරා වලින් ගොඩ ඉන්න මේ පොතෙන් එක එක යෝජනාවලියක් තියෙනවා. That's kind of the idea here, right? Then followed by many facts and figures. Those ideas are facts, given facts and figures just to support Marley's idea on the prospectus. One thing Jagan noted was that jungles of Mempi Hills would provide the soft wood required for some part of the machine, and so it could be had for a song. I mean, like, yeah, so the woods, some kind of a wood is taken from the Mempi jungle. I mean, like Mempi Hills. I mean, Mempi Hills is a forest, right? Mempi is a forest in Malgudi, close to Malgudi. So, according to this prospectus, according to this book, some wood from this Mempi Hills were also taken, used to make this perfect like story writing machine, right? And so it could be had for a song. Then he went into details of production and marketing and location, right? Right, so I missed something. So it could have for a song means kind of maybe the idea is like it's a jingle, jingles, right? It's kind of music, right? That advertise, some products are advertised with music, with songs, right? You see this sometimes, Sunil Pereira sings for Maggi noodles, right? Maggi noodles, I mean, like I'm just coming up with something, right? I mean, like you get the idea, right? So jingles are things that kind of songs advertise a product, right? So that's the idea here. Right, coming back to the going to the next line. Then they went into details. I mean, that this prospectus is explaining other details as well, the production and marketing and location, right? Those things. Jagan now realized that his son of the kerosene agent was actually the economic brain behind the whole show. And now at this point, Jagan knew, right? This is the kerosene agent's son who is the economic brain. He's like the master man, the what you call the kingpin, right? The most important economic brain behind the entire operation was this kerosene agent's son. So they have, I mean, like Marley has collaborated. Marley has taken the help of this kerosene agent's son, and he is planning these economic things for Marley. Right now, everything is becoming clear to Jagan slowly, one by one, gradually, right? A young fellow in jeans, striped shirt, and this kerosene agent's son is a young man again. Striped shirts, he wears striped shirts, right? Striped shirts, who rode a scooter and carried Marley on the pillion. So this is the person who always accommodates Marley, and he's the one scooter riding guys in Malgudi, this kerosene agent's son, and Marley is always in the pillion ride. Pillion ride means he has seat behind the rider, right? A motorbicycle has two seats, right? The rider sits in the front, then you have the pillion rider. Pillion rider is the one who sits in the behind of the rider, right? The seat behind the horse or motorcycle, horse cart is called a pillion rider, right? Every soon they abandoned the scooter and were seen moving about an old automobile. And very soon, right? The scooter was abandoned, scooter was left behind, and now the kerosene agent's son and Marley is traveling in automobile. Means a car should be, right? Or just a vehicle, right? That we use fuel, right? Automobile. Grace explained to Jagan one morning, Grace says to Jagan, right? The company have now made a start with an automobile. Although it's an old one, it's useful. I mean, like we have started the company with a car, right? It's kind of old car, Dad, but still it's useful, right? What do you think about this? Kind of these investments, right? The things Mali do. Now we are not paying enough attention here, but you have to be careful enough, right? I'll take a little while because we can't just walk blindly, leaving this without analyzing these things. Now he started printing a prospectus and just gave the product prospectus, that book, to entire Malgudi. Second thing, he bought a car, right? Automobile, even starting before starting the business. And Grace says, like, right? Uh, Grace also says this. Daughter-in-law says immediately, right? Can you see? She said, the company have now made a start with an automobile. Our company has a car in the first place, right? I mean, like, do you think it's a very rational, it's a very planned way of starting a business if you are into making profits? Right? What do you think? Yeah, it's not that smart, right? If you want to start a business, you start the business itself immediately, right? For example, I'll give you examples, sample examples from our country, right? This Siddhalepa Veda Mahatya, right? There are some accusations now against him, right? Forget those things. Now, when he started his business, right? Uh, he started with the smallest product. ඒ ප්‍රොඩක්ට් එක තමයි හැදුවේ ඉස්සෙල්ලා. හදලා ඉවර වෙලා ඒක බයිසිකලේ තියාගෙන ගිහිල්ලා තමයි ආ ඉස්සෙල්ලා කඩවල වලට බෙදුවේ. right? ඊට පස්සේ තමයි ඩිමාන්ඩ් එක ආවට පස්සේ කඩවල වලින් මේක අෂා හොඳ ප්‍රොඩක්ට් එකක් නේ කියලා ඕඩර් කරන්න ගත්තා. ඊට පස්සේ තමයි ඕඩර් වැඩි වුණේ. ඊට පස්සේ තමයි ජනප්‍රිය වෙන්නේ. කියන්නේ එක රැයින් ආවේ නෑ මේ වලට හොඳට මේ මිනිස්සු කට්ට කෑවා කියලා කියන්නේ අපි නේ. හොඳට දුක් විඳා. right? අත එකපාරට ලොරියක් අරගෙන ලෝන් එකක් ගහලා මේව කරලා පස්සේ සිද්ධාලේ පහදන්න ගියේ නෑ. It's a quite opposite way of doing things, right? There's another story, another show, I mean, like a teledrama that was broadcast in Rupavahini when I was at your age, right? I was almost a kid like you, right? Somewhere around grade 10 or 11, if my memory is correct, right? About a business person, like a story, right? There's a businessman and he had a son, just like Mali, right? It's a kind of a loose interpretation of this story, I think, right? I don't know. And he went to UK to study business, MBA or something, right? He got his degree, right? And he came to Sri Lanka, and now he's going to start. His plan is just to start a toffee business, right? And what he did was, like, before even making the toffee, he bought a new factory. He bought a car like this. He bought some expensive items of his desk, and he hired some secretaries. And he, in those days, like, he got a Motorola kind of a phone, right? Those days, not like today's mobile phone and smartphones, right? Those days, you have this heavy phones. Phone is like this, right? ඒ ෆෝන් එක හරි බරයි. ඒ කියන්නේ ගැඩොල් භාගයක් ගැඩොලක් වගේ එක හරි. ඒ ෆෝන් එකෙන් ගහලා ඕන hunting යද්දි ඒ ෆෝන් එකෙන් ගහලා මුවෙක් මරන්න පුළුවන්. ඒ තරම් බරයි, right? Just like you can use it as a hunting tool, right? I mean, like, so this is very expensive. It's hugely expensive. Now he's carrying this briefcase and he's all this business looking, have all these cars and everything. And now with his economic panel, right, after all the investment, they are calculating, right? How much toffees should we manufacture? Like, what would be the final cost of a toffee? Now, according to all the cost and, right, they have invested, and during the calculation, the economic panel suggests him, sir, දැන් අපිට ඔය එන තත්ත්වෙට පොඩි ප්‍රශ්නයක් තියෙනවා. ටොෆියක් රුපියල් 10කට විතර තමයි විකුණන්න වෙන්නේ, right? In that time, normally in the shop a toffee costs like 50 cents at that time, right? I remember I ate toffee for somewhere around 50 cents. Maximum 1 rupee. Maximum 1 rupee, right? It's a good chocolate. I mean, like, you get at 50 cents, you can eat a nice, like, I mean, like, perfect toffee. At that time, with all these costs, right, the man has invested, the product itself will cost somewhere around 10 rupees. එතකොට කඩේ 750 toffee තියෙද්දි මේ මිනිස්සෙක් නොදන්න මිනිස්සෙක් හදන ටොපියක් රුපියල් 5කට හරි 10කට හරි මිනිහෙක් සල්ලි දීලා ගන්නවද? ඒක සාර්ථක ව්‍යාපාරයක්ද? Huh? Think those things, right? He doesn't say it. Never R.K. Narayan says these things directly, right? He used the dialogue, he used the situations. But we as intelligent readers has to always understand there's a problem here. Mali is spending too much. Mali is not planning. There's no kind of a economic plan for Mali. Mali is in a kind of a self-destructive way now, right? That's in the foreground. He's spending too much. Now, I mean, like, he's bought a car, and Grace explained to Jagan one morning, and Grace is very happily says, like, the company have now made a new start with automobile, right? We have a car for the company. Wow, aren't you happy? Although it's an old one, it's very useful, right? Says the girl. One has to move about so much on business nowadays. Nowadays, to do business, you have to have these kind of things, right? And isn't that true, Father? What car is it? It looked green, said Jagan. Like, what car is this? It's a green color car, right? Said Jagan. Out of the polite need to say something. Out of the polite need to say something means he had to say something when Jagan said, when Grace said these things to Father. Father said these things, said these words because he has to say something. අර කියන්න ඕන දේ ඒ කියන්නේ මොන හරි කිව්වේ නැත්නම් හිත හොඳ නැති වෙන හින්දා දෙයක් කිව්වා, right? Out of the polite need to say something and not wishing to ask what is it price, who has paid for it, right? Father immediately, right? See how the father approaches it. The father has this question like, what is the price, like how much is this car, who has paid this much for this car? He's a talented businessman. I mean, like, Jagan is a very competent businessman. He knows, like, it's too much. Now, he doesn't say it, but he immediately notices it. Did you notice that? Right? It's like, what is this price? Who has paid for it? Grace replied, it's pretty, isn't it? Grace doesn't answer those questions. Wow, it's beautiful, isn't it, Father? It's pretty, right? And Jagan lapsed into meditation before the gods and remained in the meditation until she moved away from the threshold and he could hear her talking to Mali in the front portion of the house. Now, Jagan didn't want to take part in this conversation, and Jagan lapsed into meditation means Jagan went back into meditation. Lapsing means always falling back, right? Falling back to meditation before the gods as usual. And remained in the meditation, and he was praying, just maybe closing his eyes till this grace goes away from him. Right? Just in other words, Jayaganta Malitwatya, Graceutwatya, Meva, Angi Vadin Natu, වැඩේ කිට්ටු වෙන්නේ නැතුව ඉන්න එක තමයි ජේගන්ට තියෙන සහනය. ඒකට ජේගන් කරන්නේ just like going and praying and just always kind of self isolating himself with these kind of rituals, right? Yes. So he could hear, Jagan could hear her talking, Grace talking to Mali in the front part of the front portion of the house. We'll take a highlighter. We'll highlight this. Use a light highlighter, and yeah, I will show you, right? Even I have highlighted, right? So as students, I suggest you to do it, right? You highlight Gandhi has until meet their demand. Right. The line is like this. Gandhi has taught me peaceful method, and that's how I am going to meet their demands. Gandhiji. G means a respectful term, like so Gandhiji. I mean, like Mahatma Gandhi has taught Jagan, peaceful methods. When you are in trouble, when you are surrounded by enemies, you can't panic. You don't panic. You face them peacefully. And that's how I'm going to meet their demand. And now that's the exact way with this Gandhian principle I am going to face their demand. What is the demand? They're asking money always, right? They want this contribution from Jagan. And Jagan is going to face this situation in a Gandhian way, how his teacher, how his mentor Gandhi has taught him, right? These two are bent upon involving me in all sort of things, he reflected. These two, I mean, like Mali and Grace, Mundenna, these two are bent, means always inclined. It's always into something. Right? Upon involve me in all sort of things, these kind of things, right? They are kind of life. They want me to take part in it, right? Thinks Jagan, right? He reflected, he thought for himself, right? He was bewildered by his son's scheme and distrusted it totally. I mean, like, he's confused totally. He doesn't believe this story writing machine and this factory is going to having Malgudi. That doesn't work for father, right? He doesn't trust it, and he's totally confused. This is not going to work. This is a project that, according to him, is going to make him bankrupt. මම බංකොලොත් කරන මාව බංකොලොත් කරන්න මුන් දෙන්න මේ කරන වැඩක් වගේ තමයි තාත්තට හිතෙන්නේ. See, right, the way they do, of course, everyone get this idea. If you are the father, you also feel the same if your sons are acting like this, right? He was aware that the pressure was being subtly exercised on him. Now Jagan is very aware. Jagan feels this thing, that this pressure was being subtly, this pressure just to pay this money, this pressure to take part in their company, this pressure to take shares, right, is subtly, is in a very sharp, subtle kind of a nuance. Subtle means like it's like very sharp. You can itamat or single itama shukshama vidiyata, right? Subtle. They subtly exercise this pressure on him to make him part with his cash. I mean, like, Mali and Grace wants his cash, it seems to him, and they are just putting this plan very subtly, right? Pressuring him to take part in it. And now Jagan is totally aware of their plan, right? How they are interacting, right? He was going to meet the situation by ignoring the whole business. I mean, like, what's Jagan going to do now in the future when they are going to ask this cash, or when they are following him, when they are kind of observing him or surveilling him? If he feels like anyone is behind him, watching him, his reaction is going to be ignoring the situation. I'm going to, as a father, I'm going to go into a I don't care mode, don't care mode, kind of ignoring mode, kind of, not paying enough attention for what they want, and just go on, right, without caring, right? Ignoring the whole business, as if a kind of a, we'll highlight this, non-violent non-cooperation. Highlighted non-violent non-cooperation. Like, that's the Gandhi's principle, right? How Gandhi fought the British rule, the Iron Rule, the colonizers, is with this principle. Non-violent non-cooperation. Non-violent non-cooperation. Non-violence means avihinsavadi. Non-cooperation means ඒකට සහභාගී වෙන්නේ නැහැ. ඒ කියන්නේ හිංසනය කරන්නෙත් නැහැ, සහභාගී වෙන්නෙත් නැහැ. හිංසනයත් නැහැ, සහභාගීත්වයක් නැහැ. එහෙම තමයි. ඒ කියන්නේ, in other words, he's going to live ignoring Mali and Grace. මාලිගේ දේවල් වලට කලබල වෙන්නෙත් නැහැ, හිංසනයකුත් නැහැ. ඒකට පාටිසිපේෂන් එකකුත් නැහැ, ඒවට සහභාගී වෙන්නෙත් නැහැ. And Gandhiගේ ඉගැන්වීම Jagan took into himself and started a kind of a defense mechanism, how to face the demands of his own sons, right? He took Gandhi's principle and just turned it into his own means of facing, right? How he's going to face this thing, right? Now his enemies are who? The son and the daughter-in-law, right? That's the idea here. But anyway, right, he found his domestic life irksome. But anyway, Jagan found his domestic life, now life inside his house, very irritating, right? Very unsatisfactory, irksome, right? He had lost the quiet joy of anticipation he used to experience whenever he turned into the statue corner. I mean, like, he was very relaxed some time ago, right? He had this joy a content in his mind, peace in his mind. He has lost that, right? Anticipation he used to experience whenever he turned to the statue corner was gone now, right? He felt nervous as he approached the ancient house, right? When he now, can you remember when in early days when he finished the business at night, somewhere around 7:30, when he was passing the lowly statue, when he was looking into the lowly statue or like looking into the stars, right? He was a happy man. He had different thoughts. He was calm, right? He had nice thoughts. Now he don't have nice thoughts. He doesn't have this calm and placid thoughts, right? And he's feel anxious when he nervous when he approach when he sees the house. He feels nervous. ගෙදර දකිනකොට ගෙදරට යන්න හිතෙන්නේ නැහැ. ඒ තරම් ටිකක් එපා වෙලා මිනිහට ගෙදර, right? The expectant stare of Grace when he or she opened the door and the significant side glances of Marley got on his nerves. When he went into house, right, everyone is watching at him, right? Grace is when Grace opened the door and the significant side glances of Marley got onto right. The expectant stare. I mean, like Grace is the one who's opening the door now when Jagan goes home, right? And she has this expectant stare means this look of asking certain things, right? I mean, like, can a look ask, be expectant? Yeah, right? Yeah, of course, a look can be expectant, right? A single තියෙනනේ. මා ඔබ ඇස් දෙක දිහා බලාගෙන හිටියා. ඇය මා දෙස බලාගෙන මන් දන්නේ just like kind of I don't listen to this stuff, but I get these things when I just travel outside, right? ඔබ ඇස් පිය නොහෙලා හිටියා. ඇස් පිය නොහෙලා හිටියා. ඔබ ඇස් පිය නොහෙලා හිටියා. අයත් බලන් ඉන්නවා මෙයත් බලන් ඉන්නවා අනිවිසලෝචන පූජාවගේ දෙන්න බලන් ඉන්නේ නැති, right? The idea is like you can talk with eyes, right? You can කතා ඕනේ ඇස් වලින් කතා කරන්න පුළුවන්, just like gestures, things like that. Maybe the idea, right? So the same way Grace is doing this expectant stare, like in the eyes itself. Grace is expecting. Father, do you have the money for me? Do you have this 50,000? What is your response, right? Without the words, the eyes are like speaking, right? So, and the Marley is giving side glances. Marley's side glances, right? Not directly looking. යනකොට නිකන් අර ඔයාලත් එහෙම නේ පිරිමි ළමයි එහෙම ගෑනු ළමයි දිහා බලන්නේ side glances කෙලින් බලන්නේ නැති කියන rubber එක හදාලා බලනවා කියලා, right? Now the thing is like these side glances and these things got into nerves, like make Jagan feel very uncomfortable, right? Jagan is not used to this, right? Jagan hated these things, like what the heck is this, right? In his own house he's getting these things, right? He was aware of a silent tension growing. I mean, like he was now noticing a silent tension, silent conflict, silent kind of a problem is growing between his son and him, Grace and him, right? He felt happy if nobody came when he turned the key on the door. I like it. He was extremely happy, right? If he can just open the door on his own and no one came to meet him. Grace දැහැට දැක්කේ නැතත් මිනිහට ඒ කියන්නේ Grace හරි මාලි හරි දැහැට නොදකින්න තරමට සැපයි දැන් මිනිහට, right? Jagan. I felt happy if nobody came when he turned the key on the door. At the times when both were away, at the times when Grace and Marley are both away, Grace shopping and Marley, Grace sometimes went shopping and Marley with his local associated in the green car when he was traveled. Jagan feel, thank God, oh my God, right, thank you, right? He feels eased, he feels at home, right? At that time, he's not tensed, he's not anxious at that time. That's why I feel, thank God, right? Jagan thought for the green car. I mean, like, thank you, green car, for taking these people out of my sight, these bloody hateful people out of my sight, right? Thank for the green car, right? When he was in, he heard them upon the front door. He retreated far into the backyard of the house, or someone sometimes even locked himself in the bathing shack. Or whenever at this house he heard the sound of the car, or this Marley and Grace coming, my God, what is Jagan's reaction? Jagan immediately retreated, means went back, retreated, he withdrew into the backyard, went to the back behind of the house, right? Or house, or sometimes even locked himself immediately in the bath shack. Can you remember that corrugated tin and everything, that shabby kind of a bathroom? He immediately went to the bathroom and locked himself, right? I mean, like, he didn't want to associate, or he didn't want to anticipate, take part in any action these children, right, Mali and Grace is doing, right? So he always isolate himself. Isolation is best policy. Non-violence, non-cooperation. I don't want to be rude to you. I don't want to jump at you. I don't want to hurt you. But I don't want to take any part of your bloody actions anymore. He's just retreating, right? So that's the idea. That's the Gandhian principle. How he's practicing it, right? That's the idea here. I think you notice it, right?